All right, everybody, welcome to this episode of the Start, Build, Grow Show. You are going to want to stay tuned for this one. Our guest today is a female powerhouse in the construction industry, entrepreneur, business owner, author, motivational speaker, content creator, and bona fide karma ass kicker. Stay tuned. All right, everybody. Hey, Pat, thank you so much for taking time in today and hanging out with me today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate you having me.
Love it. I'm excited for this one. Even just chatting with you before, I love your energy. You know, we have a lot of East Coast connections there. My wife's family's from the East Coast. My mom, my whole family's from the East Coast. So I love it. Every time I connect with someone from the East Coast, I love the vibe. I love the energy. So we're going to have some fun here. Traditional fashion on this show. This show is about entrepreneurship. It's about sharing the entrepreneurial story and pouring into those who are listening and trying to build construction companies. And I know you have an amazing story. So we're going to start there. How'd you get into contracting and how'd you get to where you became an entrepreneur in construction?
Yeah. So construction actually picked me. It was my late husband's trade. Date myself back to the early 90s. He was a union contractor, union carpenter, and he was unemployed more than he was employed. So we started having our first son, building a family together. And I said, I can't live like this. I have a background in accounting and business. I'm a little bit more predictable type. I live my life that way, a little predictable. And I said, we have to start our own business. I said, you can't keep working and not working. So I took $100 off of his layoff check and we combined forces. I went to the local printer when didn't have Vistaprint. So I went down there and I got flyers and business cards made. And we went around to every retail and empty office building and we put them in all the empty spaces. And we got a call and we haven't looked back. That was 1991, I believe. And we went there. It was a gym. It was called Workout World back then. It was a big franchise here in Jersey. I think it's subsequently been sold. I think it's Jersey Strong now. But they gave us the first contract that we had. And I asked them for 50% down and we haven't looked back. So he gave us $130,000, I think it was, which was a lot back then. Mm-hmm. And we went out and bought tools, truck, gang box. And we came in the next day and he goes, did I just put somebody in business? And I go, you did, and you won't regret it. And we just went with it. And the architects loved my late husband. He was a man's man. He was a master carpenter. He can build anything, 45-degree walls. And we just kept building our business and we kept reinvesting into the tools that you need. My dad, I always talk about my late father. He had an 8th grade education and he survived. And he always said, your tools make you the most money. So we always reinvested into the proper tools to do the job. And we just kept growing. And that's how I started in the construction industry. And subsequently, we'll talk about how now I'm all alone because my husband passed away. And we built a nice business. Sorry to hear that, man. Thank you. We built a very good business and we thought we had it all figured out, Randy. Everybody thinks you're going to work 29.5 years. You're going to retire and you're going to travel. Kids are growing out of the house, and it came out of nowhere. My husband went to the job site, had no symptoms. He called me, he started peeing blood in the porta-john, and my life changed in one day. So he had bladder cancer, and I took 2 years off to take care of him because he gave me a good life on his back. So it was my duty as his wife. We were high school sweethearts. So that's how subsequently I became sole owner in the construction industry. But that's my compressed version of my story.
Thank you. And there's definitely plenty to dig in there and appreciate you sharing. I love your inspiration, your energy, and it's super cool to to even just get the little tidbit that we got. So, early on in the process, and there's a lot of correlation and we can relate a lot. So I did the same thing where I started my business and I just had an opportunity. I basically got laid off, from the company I was working for. They had bought a bunch of properties. I was doing construction. I was the superintendent and they're like, well, it's going to be a little while. We bought a bunch of land and we got to develop it, but we're not ready. We won't be ready for about 6 months to actually, pour concrete and start putting sticks down. And I'm like, well, that was my job in the business. And at the same time, I had built relationships with, with a number of our subcontractors and became good friends with some of them. And a friend of mine who he was our paint drywall guy, and knew him through the houses that I was building. And he came to me, he was like, hey man, I got this lady who was looking to do a basement finish and look for a contractor to do it. He's like, I can definitely do the paint and drywall. Can you do the framing? I'm like, okay, sure. Let's figure this out. And lo and behold, I somehow, some way got her to, believe in me and sign a contract. And with no money, I had nothing I didn't have any nest egg or no money. I just sold a job and started working and took the deposit and went down to Home Depot and started ordering the materials and somehow figured it out. So it's kind of cool to hear that story, because it reminded me, I haven't thought about that in a long time, but I think that there's a certain level of tenacity where you just gotta
believe it.
If you believe it,
you can sell it, right? If you believe it, if you believe that you can do it, and you can do it, but you have to convince, right? You have to sell yourself. And I do that a lot. Trust me, I'm a woman in a man's world. So I always tell people that. What do you do for a living? I go, I convince men to spend money they don't know they're spending. And it's just a joke, right? But it's true, because they have a choice of so many different people. And who's going to take a chance on a woman they never worked with before in construction, right? They don't know me. Architects know me. I've been doing it 31 years this year. But, I'm glad to hear that story, because you had opportunity. So you created the opportunity, you took advantage of the opportunity, you believed in yourself, and you sold yourself. So good for you. That was a good job. Same thing I did, right?
Yeah. And of course, that's just the beginning, because the road is all over the place. So we'll dive into that, because as I know you wrote a book, and I did the same, and kind of shared a lot of my story, because it was fun. The first couple of years, it felt like we were gaining some good momentum, and then the market changed. The recession happened in 2008, and the bank stopped lending, and people stopped remodeling their homes and stopped building custom homes, and it was flat overnight. And I had to adapt and adjust to that. So, obviously a recent challenge you just talked about, but let's go back and to maybe some of the early days. And what were some of when you're getting your business off the ground, what were some of the big hurdles that you remember that were kind of defining moments that led you to significant growth, personally and professionally?
Well, it was tough in the beginning, because I really didn't spend a lot of time on the field, because the guys didn't accept women. It's come a long way. Most women in the industry now don't understand it. When I started out, I didn't even get an email from a woman. There was no project managers. There was nobody in the industry. And I would go out. I'd have to go out sometimes in job. And, the guys were very condescending. They didn't know who I was until they realized that I signed their paychecks. And my husband said, just go with it. It's just what we got to live with. We're a team. I'll be the front for the field. You're the necessary evil in the office. And that was very challenging for me, because, it's very frustrating when you do all that dirty work, right? You're bidding, you're doing the takeoffs, you're procuring. We were union at the time. I was dealing with the BAs, the hiring, the firing, doing the accounting. I was doing everything. And it's, I used to say to my husband, all you do is build it. And he'd say, well, yeah, why don't you come out there and build it? And now I do. So, he got his wish. I do both now. I'm in the field and I'm in the office. But it's been challenging over the years, being a woman growing. It's like anything else. You have to prove yourself. When you start proving yourself and people realize what you're talking about, then they start respecting you. And once you get the respect, you're good, right? So, like you said early on, you bid everything. I'm a little bit older than you. So I brought our construction company. There's two of them. We were union and then we were non-union. So we brought them through 4 recessions. So I know what you're talking about. And I don't know what this last one was. I'm going to be honest. This last Biden administration. I don't know what we're going to call that, but it was different. It was challenging. You have to, like you said earlier, you have to reinvent yourself. You have to go with the trends. Commercial, especially, is an indicator. It's directly tied to the economy. I got a lot of investment guys, up in New York. They'll call me and they'll say, what's going on? What's it look like? Because architects have a lot of work now. We're going to be busy, we're going to be
Yep.
busy in 2 years. So they like to ask me what's going on, because commercial, you usually deal with equity firms and investors and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
you have to reinvent yourself. I tell the story all the time, Randy. When we started out, we were 95% retail. That's all we did. We lived for Black Friday, 712s, just crazy money. Got to be open for Black Friday. And then Amazon came along. So you got to reinvent yourself. And then,
Yep.
the brick and mortar fell apart. So then I did some research, and we started doing more medical. There was a lot of, I guess, renal dialysis centers, 24/7 walk-ins, offices, stuff like that. And now it's
Yeah.
more like mid-rise residential. I call it residential commercial, but that's the trend, still hot here in Jersey. So it's look, it's not a straight line, right?
No.
It's got a lot of turns in it. You got to keep reinventing yourself. You got to go with the flow. You got to figure out what's going on. I mean, it
Well,
still happens every day. I got to figure it out.
absolutely. And I love that, because we can definitely lean into that, because regardless of, your niche or what your specific thing you're doing in the
Yeah.
contracting space, as an entrepreneur, as a leader of an organization, and this is where I learned a lot, but I made some big mistakes, because my head was just down. It was focusing on the thing in front of me right now. What can I do right now today to get this project from here to here to here?
Right.
And I wasn't paying attention to the market. And you just nailed it, where we have to learn to pay attention. Like, understand what's going on in the real estate world, understand what's going on monetarily, understand what's going on with inflation, understand what's going on with, politics and those sort of, because
It's all
those things
connected.
all affect the market. And
Yeah.
what I do in Colorado would not work in Jersey. What you do in Jersey probably wouldn't work here.
Nope.
Every market is different, and I've been blessed to build a construction solar company, roofing company, that has allowed me to create this podcast and to create a coaching platform, a consulting company, where I get to work with companies all across the country. And the
Yeah.
thing is, I got companies in Jersey and down in Southern California, Northern California, Florida, Texas, Colorado, all over the entire
Great.
country, and not one of them's the same.
Yeah.
Every single one of them have different nuances, have different markets. There's different things that we have to identify to then give them an edge to help them grow their business.
Right. You have to
And
stand out. Trust me,
that's entrepreneurship.
I'm probably the leader of the class on that. I have to stand
Absolutely.
out. What makes me different? I'm the woman in a man's world. I have to sell my knowledge,
Yeah.
and
And
I
you
have
can either let that deter you or hold you back, or
you
you can
can't.
use that as leverage to dominate.
Yeah.
Like, find that
Well,
niche, find that thing that in a traditional sense. And I'm, I get it. Like, my partners, my sister, she's a partner in a company. My very first hire was my mom, who ran the business, and same dynamic. And I was like, she's from Jersey too. I was like,
yeah.
Mom, like, can you handle all the paperwork and the permitting and all the things, make sure everybody gets paid? I'm going to
Yes.
go out and sell this thing and build, find salespeople and try to drive growth in this business. And I'm so grateful. I figured that out early on, growing up, and with sisters and my mom in a very heavily female dominated world in
Good.
my own home growing up. I'm grateful for that, because I think I realized that early on, and I'm grateful because I feel like our industry is coming. You just said it, is coming around a lot. I mean, there's a lot of movement, women in roofing, women in construction, and you're a big part of that. And I think that's we need to go there and lean into that, because that's the biggest opportunity in the blue collar space, in the blue collar world. And I lean into it a lot with females run my businesses, and I couldn't be happier with the results, because we get some amazing results, amazing things that happen when we really collaborate and work together as equals. And it's an amazing thing. So if I can be a voice for that
Good for you.
along with you, let's go, because that's how we can grow our businesses. That's how we can change the industry. And that's
Great.
how we can make things better for everybody.
Good for you, Randy. I agree. Women have so much to offer in construction. People ask me that all the time. I said, women have their own skills. They're very detail oriented. They're very organized. They have an eye. They can multitask. It's just built in us. It's just part of, being a mother, if you are. If not, it's just ingrained in us. We know how to
Yep.
multitask. We can make phone calls, we can type, and we can also have somebody doing something else. And I'm proud that you're doing that. I'm glad I'm talking to you because it's important. I say all the time, I've been blazing a path for women in construction for 30 years. When they call me sweetheart, get me a cup of coffee, right? I
Yep.
survived. Like you said, you got to take it and you got to build from it.
Yep.
Don't let it break you down. Let it build you up. Right?
Absolutely.
You got to
Yeah.
take from that, and you got to grind. You got to grind. It's just like a building in construction. The building's only as good as the foundation it's built on. So you build
Absolutely.
your foundation like you did, sister, mom, got a great foundation. I had that. I had again, I had to make lemonade out of lemons. My husband passed away. I had to redo my entire career at 52 years old. I spent my entire life savings trying to save his life. Over $1 million because he was in clinical trials. They didn't pay for the drug, experimental. I was wrapped up in the world of medical, Then I got a bad rap with his life insurance. They didn't pay it because of he didn't disclose a urinary tract infection in 2012. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So here I am broke, $250,000 in debt, just buried my husband, and I'm trying to restart my career. And thank God, blue collar, great men. They knew my husband. They gave me opportunities. They would call me. We know what happened. Whatever you need, here's a job, bid it. I mean, I didn't get anything given to me, Randy. Don't get me wrong. You still got to be low bid, right? So thank God before he passed, he taught me how to bid, and all these years sitting at the dinner table, I used to, you got to be kidding me. We got to talk about building a box header, got to talk about building the soffit. But if he didn't talk to me about that at the dinner table, I wouldn't have known where to start. Because he always told me, if you can bid it, you can build it, because you know all the parts that go together.
Yep.
Right? So
I love that you say that.
Yeah.
Because I remember early on in my career, and I was just an intern trying to figure it out. I was going to college full time, and I wanted to be in construction. So I somehow convinced somebody to hire me to just learn how to build a house. I wanted to learn how to build a house from the ground up. And through that process, dealing with the designers and architects, I'm like, constantly, hey, we need to make this change. We need to make this change. Taking 6 weeks to get like a cantilever adjusted like by 2 feet, like something. Like I looked at it, I'm like, wait a minute, what would in that 6 weeks time I'm waiting for you, I could probably learn this software. So I convinced him to buy the software and give me the training, and I just dove in, I figured it out, and learned it, and then I became the guy that makes the adjustments on the plans, right? And it's just like the thing of the tenacity of identifying a challenge and either just, okay, well, I'll just wait 6 weeks, or saying, no, I'm going to find another way to get through this, and I'm going to find a way to make this happen. And I think there's so many takeaways just from this short conversation we're having, because there's a lot of, I'm getting up there now. I can start saying the young entrepreneurs. I was always the young guy in the industry. I was like, I couldn't even drink when I'm like building houses and then telling people what to do. But I think the idea of the tenacity, and you've got to dive in and learn the things.
Yep.
And I think we're in an age nowadays, and there's some young entrepreneurs out there that are wanting to get into construction. Don't rush. It's okay. You don't need it right now. You don't just graduate and all of a sudden be a multimillionaire. It doesn't happen that way. It's, you see the one-offs on online and the one-offs in the media, but I think we're losing the sense of grinding. Like, do the work, learn the things that you need to learn enough to be dangerous, enough to know what you're talking about, and then move on to the next thing and delegate when you can. And I think we get ahead of ourselves, and this next generation wants to just move so fast and do everything so fast and let AI build my company for me. And I think there's something in blue collar, in construction especially, that I want to tell you, if you're listening, if you're watching this, like, do the work. Go work with the drywallers, go work with the roofers, figure out how to sell things, figure out how to read plans, figure out how to do the bidding, figure out how to do these things just enough. You don't have to master it, but know enough to be dangerous, know enough to lead, and know enough to identify, ideally, hopefully, minimize some mistakes that you might make.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're back to building the foundation. If you build it right from the beginning, it'll last a long time, right? So you need to know all that. And that's I'll give your audience an example. I got right after my husband passed, I got a nice job. It's a 9-story office building being converted into 117 apartments. all interior, right? So I get the job. It was a little bit low, but that's okay. I was rebuilding my career. And then they demoed everything, Randy, and none of the steel was where it was on the drawing. So time is money, right? I had a crew of 12 guys there getting ready to work. What am I going to do? Hold my breath and say, you need to get new drawings. No. What did I do? I did as-builts. And I probably gave them $250,000 worth of as-builts because I held the steel tight and I kept all the ADA numbers and dumped everything in the living room, right? Architect would come once a week, walk through, pull all the numbers with my guys. He'd mark it down. He'd do revisions. I saved the developer a lot of money. But my $1.5 million contract went to $5 million because I was a team player. I didn't stomp my feet. I didn't stop the job. It would have taken him a long time. Architects are busy. They got to schedule it in. They got to come out there. Then they have to revise it. Then have to send it for, back to the town and get revised permits instead of doing a letter and doing as-builts, right? So that, like you, I learned how to do all that. I was a team player. I kept my guys working. It was Christmas time, and I was able to keep moving the job, which in turn, that the value of those as-builts paid for itself 10 times over, at least. Yeah. So, people say, you're crazy. That's a change order. Is it? Absolutely. It is. But I build relationships, like you said in the beginning, the generation now, I love them. I have kids in this generation. They're called the now generation because they want everything now. They don't want to wait. So you have to build it. Things don't fall out of the sky. Oh, she's got a nice car. Oh, she's got a nice house. Oh, how did she get it? I worked for it. I worked for it. When you're 60, you're going to have all that too because I worked long and hard for it. Yep. 80 hours a week. I'd work at night when the kids were little. I'd put them to bed and I'd work doing bids with my husband until 12 o'clock at night. And then the next day comes real fast, right? 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock. We start early in construction. So, all I could say is don't rush things. Like you said, build it right. If you build it right, you build it for a long time and it'll survive. Yeah. I was able to survive a lot. So you just keep going. You reinvent yourself. You get informed. And I don't know. I think being in construction now it's hard. The competition is really tough right now. Very, very tough. I mean, Absolutely. Just yesterday, I lost the job by 28%. I don't need practice. I know how to bid.
Yeah.
He's working for free.
The thing is, companies that do that, and it happens in our world is all the time. And companies that do that, one, they're either don't know what the heck they're doing, or two, they're just willing to lose money just to keep the lights on. And it's only
paper. They're pushing
paper. It's just a matter of time before that becomes an issue or they're gone. And you're like, so anyways, that's what we deal with. I do want to shift gears a little bit here because, I love, what you've gone through so much to get to where you are. And now you're speaking, you're traveling, you wrote a book. Let's talk about kicking karma's ass. Like, where did that come from? Let's get me caught up on that.
So, as you know, in construction, every day is a story, right? So for 30 years, when I was with my husband, I guess it was almost 28 before he passed. We were together 36 years. So he would always say at the dinner table, you got to write a book. This industry is insane. Guys are showing up in their underwear, just crazy stories. And I'd always take notes. So after he passed, I had a bad patch, not only career. My brother died unexpectedly. My mother died the following year. And then my dad and my husband was diagnosed with cancer. So I lost 4 people in 3 years. And I was kind of spinning around like, what the hell's going on? I was out of work. I was trying to take care of my husband. I was taking my parents to rehab and everybody wound up dying. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, when something like that happens in your life, you're like, you got to figure it out. So I did a lot of contemplation. I did like a life review while I'm still alive. And I was like, there's got to be a reason why all this happened to me. And then I did. I looked back and I went through my childhood was very hard. And I was like, you know what? I have to write this book. My husband used to say, write a book. So I went through all my notes. And it's like I tell everybody, whether you believe in spirituality, I had a dream and my husband was clear as day. He said, write the book. So that was my first little nudge, right? And then my sister, who's very spiritual, she came at Christmas and she said, oh, she's cutting the ham. And she's like, oh, I had a dream about your husband last night. I'm like, okay, and what? She said, to tell you to write the damn book. I was like, okay, I guess I'm writing a book. So when you write it, and I sat down and wrote it, I said, I got to help people. I don't want it to be sad. I want it to have humor. I want to talk about medical, life, growing up, Catholic school, being abused, a little bit of everything, Randy. And then the funny stories in construction and restarting my life in the industry. So I kind of put everything together, and it wound up being a pretty good book. You know, I'm not J.K. Rowling, but it went #1 internationally. People kind of connect to it. It's got something for everybody. And that's how I wound up writing the book. And when I wrote it in 4.5 months, you know, I got a publisher to help me kind of navigate the self-publishing world. And it was effortless. So when it's effortless, I think it was meant to be. So, you know, I use that to help people going through some tough times. I can only, you know, tell people to read it. It's funny, you know, touch on everything. It's sad. It's eye-opening. You know, I have stories in there about how I changed case law in New Jersey. It's just, you know, I have Murphy's Law. If it can happen, it will happen. I had a rough going, but I just keep getting back up. I'm like whack-a-mole. I just keep getting up. And I keep going because, you know, I tell the story. I had to go to work the day after my husband's funeral because a guy forced me to. He was mad. He didn't like me. And he called me. My husband was on hospice. And I'm like, my guys are there. What's the problem? Oh, the client doesn't care that your husband's dying of cancer. If you're not on site by Thursday, we're taking your contract and giving it to somebody else. So my husband, I swear my husband heard that story, Randy, because he died the next day. You know, we had to wake on Tuesday, I believe. And then Wednesday was his funeral. And I had to get up on Thursday because he wasn't in bed anymore. I didn't have anybody ringing the doorbell with balloons and a giant check that I won Publishers Clearinghouse. I was in debt. I was in trouble. I was like, oh my God, I have to restart my life. And I could have went and did bookkeeping. How do you get out of a hole? Right? You can't get out of a hole making $25 an hour. I was in pretty deep. So, you know, I got up. I cried my eyes out. And I said, Lord, please give me the strength to get through this day. And I did. I went and I didn't look back. I was a little angry, but, you know, I think the anger kind of got me through it. But that jerk on that job site forced me to get out of bed. So I always say in some weird way, he helped me through my grieving process. I still grieved. When we cry alone. When we laugh with others. You know, guys were like, what are you doing here? Your husband just died. And then the whispers, oh, she's cold. No, I'm not cold. I cry all night long. Okay. I have to do what I have to do. I have to pay my bills. I'm broke. I'm in debt. So, you know, you kind of learn to leave all the whispers because you know as well as I know, men can be worse than women talking on the job sites. You know, there's a lot of whispering. And then you have a lot of disgruntled guys who are angry that a woman is more successful than them and they always wanted to own a company or whatever their situation was. And I try to give people a pass. We're all going through something, you know, but if you're continually a jerk, then that's a different story. Then my jersey comes out, you know, but I try not
Jersey
to.
girl.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can get down and dirty with the best of them. And I think that probably helps me survive in the industry I'm in. And
you gotta have grit.
Yeah, I have to grind. Yeah, you can't look. I always say, I said on many podcasts, there's a fine line with being loud and being heard. So you have to figure out how to dance around 100 different egos and know when okay, that's enough, right? And when you just laugh it off. And when it's look, at this stage in my career, we make a lot of friends along the way, like you said. But at the end of the day, we're all there to make money. Okay. It's a job. It's a career. We're trying to make a living. We're trying to pay the bills. So you have to keep that in mind. And I always say jokingly, as long as I'm going one way and that's to the bank, you can say whatever you want. You can call me any name you want. You can call me the B word. I don't care. As long as my bills are paid and I'm good and my clients are happy. That's all that I worry about.
Yeah.
So
I love it. And
that's the story compressed. It's in the book.
Yeah. And it's so inspirational. And get the book. It's called Kicking Karma's Ass. I'm sure it's on Amazon. And you have a website, right? It's
I do.
What's the website? How do we get
the
a hold of you?
Well, I have a website. Everything's been combined. It's patmiller.net. And then I'm on all the social medias. All of them have links. That's the Pat Miller 11. And you can always look at my website and see what I actually build. It's Blue Diamond Construction NJ.com. So
yeah, I
yeah,
love
there's
that.
a lot of stuff going on, you know. The industry's crazy right now. You know this.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's gonna stay that way, right? So we got to adapt, we got to overcome, and
Yeah.
I can tell you that just hanging out with you for a little while here, listening to your stories, very inspirational. I know
Thank you.
there's someone on this podcast that's getting some amazing insight from there.
Okay.
And if you enjoyed this conversation, you've enjoyed the podcast, maybe you're new to the podcast, maybe you're listening, maybe you're watching on YouTube, maybe you're just watching a clip, whatever it is, I encourage you to like, share. If Pat's story, if something that we shared, is relevant to you, or maybe relevant to somebody that you care about that might not have heard the podcast, share this out, like it, comment, subscribe, leave us a review. All those things help us, spread the word and encourage others, encourage entrepreneurship. And the one thing I'm going to say before I put you on the spot here is
Okay. Come on.
a major takeaway. And this is something that, I think is a core, I can tell is a core value of yours as well. And I see it on your necklace. Like, we don't get through, I truly believe this, that we don't get through the hardest of things in life alone. We don't get through anything in life alone. And there's powers that be that are there for us, however you look at that. But faith is such an important part of our journey, an important part of getting through all these challenging things, as well as celebrating the amazing time. So I'd encourage you to lean into that as well. Pat, in traditional fashion, and I didn't even tell you this, which I don't with my guests, but at the end of the show, I always ask for a golden nugget. You're an experienced entrepreneur. You've done a lot of things, for somebody, look, in this case, I want you to look back at, young Pat Miller getting started. Imagine that person. What would you say? What's the best piece of advice that you could give to the entrepreneur, to the listener today?
My best piece of advice is be selective. When you're young, you want to bid everything. You want to go after everything. You want to chase everything. And now I say, as I'm older, the best job I ever got was the one I didn't get. And that's pretty deep, right? So sometimes you get so disappointed, and just know that everything happens for a reason. You weren't supposed to get that job. I don't know why, but you weren't. So don't let it dishearten you. Don't let it discourage you. Be selective. Know who pays their bills. Don't work for just anybody. Be selective, like I said. Build those relationships. I did it. We all do it, I think. You want to chase everything. You're young. You're in the industry. You're building your business. You want to bid this. You want to bid that. You want to bid this. You don't want to say no to anybody, because you're getting opportunity. But not everyone is the right fit for you. Know who your developer is. Know their history with payments, because that job that you didn't get could be a blessing in disguise, right, Randy?
Absolutely, man. You could not have hit that more on the head, and that applies to life too. It's like even like Warren Buffett says, he says no to 9 out of 10 opportunities. And it's the art and the power of learning how to say no, learning when to say no, will actually unlock a whole nother world that you may not.
And always step back when they knock on your door. They're looking for you for a reason. Something happened. Who knows? Or, this guy left the job. Something happened. The reason why not every contractor just walks off a job. Something happened. Just be wary of those who knock on your door. There's a reason.
Love it.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Pat, for hanging out with me. It's such an inspiring story. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for being who you are, and keep doing what you're doing. I look forward to connecting with you down the road. And once again, like, subscribe, check out patmiller.net. And I appreciate you. Take care, everybody. Go help, go serve, lead, teach, and inspire those around you. Take care. God bless.
Take care. Thanks.